Mic check. Welcome to the Second Half Podcast. I'm your host, Jabari Saunders. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that follow button. Be sure to follow us on social media and all social media platforms. We are back with another new episode. We're excited about this guest. This guest not only is a sport and entertainment journalist, an author and cultural icon. He's penned works of art such as Soul Provider, The Game is Not the Game, and of course recently Ice, Why I Was Born to Score. So not only that, he's a husband, he's an incredible father, and additionally he's a contributor to ESPN, none other than Rob Scoop Jackson, my brother. How you doing, man? Appreciate you being on.
I'm finally here.
We finally made it. We finally made it. A long time coming.
I can't believe it.
Yes, sir. No, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
It's so important, to really just see the other side, see the journey, see the transition, see how you found yourself on the other side successfully. And this is a little different because, and we'll get into that conversation, but it's a little different because I feel a little pressure. I'm not gonna lie. Just being on the other side, like Scoop, you my man.
I got you.
But this is your profession that I'm now entering into, so I feel like I gotta make sure I show up the way that I need to show up.
No, that's interesting because that's one of the things that I've dealt with throughout my whole career, and seeing the transition made as former athletes and cats that are outside of the media starting to find inroads in the media. And we've been dealing with these conversations for years and years. It's probably going on this second generation of athletes really becoming prominent in these spaces because the spaces have opened up so much. And the one thing I've always said to most athletes is, as you get into this game, just knowing the game that you're coming from should not be enough. You're going to feel that it is enough, but it should not be enough.
Gotcha.
What we know and you all don't know is how to gather information. You all need to find out how to gather information. You need to find out how to report a story. And that's especially if you're trying to get into the real field of journalism. If you're just trying to do some topical stuff where you become a talking head, that's fine. But the gathering information part is still important because it's going to direct what it is that you say when it comes to you having information. The one thing you should not limit yourself to is just being able to say stuff related to the game that you played. It has to be deeper than that.
Yep.
There's more to the game, if you're trying to use your inside knowledge to it than what you've done from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to get that information and relay that information back to the public?
Yeah.
That's the conversation. And very rarely do you find someone that literally goes out and starts to learn, okay, let me find out how to do this.
Yeah.
Robin Roberts found out how to go about getting this information. Jay Billis has gone out and found out how to go about getting this information. You see, young people starting to okay, it's bigger than this if I want to be the most. It's not about becoming famous, getting a check, having a company trust you with this, that, and the other. It's about kind of like what JJ Redick is trying to do outside of coaching. Okay, I'm going to go in this lane. I'm going to find a niche in this lane.
Yep.
I'm going to stay kind of true to statistics, but I'm also going to drop some stuff that's going to be clickbait for certain people. So I'm going to have these certain comments. I'm going to understand that part of it. But also, I'm going to be able to back up all the things people are arguing with, whether it's accurate or not. I'm going to have that information, but I have to learn how to get that information.
Yep.
Athletes are so reliant on other individuals, giving them relationship throughout their whole careers, especially if they reach the professional level, because people feed them that. Very rarely do they have to go out and get it.
Got to go seek that
and
knowledge.
that's a skill set that we are taught in the media, how you go get information, because there's a million stories out there. What's going to make your story or your information different? What's going to make what you say or your voice stand out? That's where it becomes on you. And that's the thing that I've always dealt with athletes about. You need to learn how to gather information. And we spend a lot of part of our lives in doing this, and that shit's not going to come in 3 or 4 years. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It takes time to get to know and build resources and know who to trust. It's a lot of nuances in this that athletes figure out as they're trying to figure this out, and a lot of them run from it.
Yep,
So
yep.
I get why you're saying the nervousness of it a little bit, because, you're kind of at the infancy stages of getting your foot really, really in that door, what you want to do in this genre. And the more you get into it, you're going to find out there's going to be more work into it.
Absolutely.
But once you find out how to make that work, you're not going to feel nervous a bit, in front of anyone. You know what I'm saying? Because now you're going to feel like you did when you were on the court. Like, what do you say? You're never nervous if you're prepared.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And
spot on.
You could be prepared as you want to, but without having years and years in this in your, in your backpack.
You gotta get the reps up.
Right.
You gotta get the reps.
So that's where it comes in. Like, you start getting those reps in and start really understanding how to gather information. And then you start listening to members of the media. Yeah. Not just former athletes, but members of the media, and you start picking apart where they could be better at what they do, how they could have taken this different angle, information that you gathered on the same subject that they don't have. You start watching shows and like, how come they didn't talk about this part of this? Yeah. I found out about how come, and that's when you're like, okay, now I'm now having
you're
information.
Invested.
Yeah, because now you're seeing what the professionals aren't doing.
Yep.
And you have the capability of doing so. That's all of a sudden that builds up your confidence. That gets your reps up, but it also builds up your confidence to the point that you feel a part of a community, not attached to what you once did, but what you've become right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I love that. Like that what you just spoke of right there just really helps me set the tone, and just, you always need those mentors. You need those words of advice to just keep you going and to keep, digging in and digging deeper to find that information out. But no, I appreciate you setting the tone there. All right, let's go back, because I really want to understand the where Scoop came from. Like, Scoop, where you from? Where did the journey begin?
I am from right down the street. I ain't gonna put out where you are, but
Arnie did earlier today.
Cool. I was born on 48th and Drexel.
Wow, just a few blocks over.
That's what I'm saying. I come from, and we moved from there when I was 5 years old, and we moved to South Shore. Okay. And I've been in South Shore ever since I was 5 years old, and I have not, except to go to school, But as far as living is concerned, I'm a South Shore dude, and I'm gonna die a South Shore dude. I've been in South Shore ever since I was 5 years old.
I love that. That. Now, Chicago being such a huge sports city. I mean, you got Bulls, Blackhawks, Bears. You've got all the universities. You've got Fighting Illini. You got Northwestern right up the road. You got Chicago State, DePaul. Yeah. So many great athletes. Man. Where did your love and passion for sports begin within the realm in your community?
That's a good question. Because, Jabari, you kind of know. But Chicagoans, we are born with basketball damn near in our blood. Mm-hmm. And you've heard me say this before, that I think, basketball is one of Chicago's greatest exports. Just like hip-hop, is New York's greatest. And, coffee is Seattle's. And, cars were Detroit's, and, Silicon Valley got tech thing. Everybody, New Orleans got, food, culture, whatever. There's certain places in America where what they export, and they export it to the world, and it's a direct connection to what that city is best at. And I've always felt, outside of black music, basketball has always been one of the things that Chicago has exported to the world greater than any other city, in this country. So I think, as most guys who are born in Chicago, especially if you're black, you're handed some semblance of a basketball damn near at birth. Yep. It could be a baby Nerf thing. It could be, a scrumpled up piece of paper. Yep. It could be a rolled up sock. Yep. And then you get that hanger that you put on the door.
Right on the door, yep. Exactly.
So it's hard to say, but that's always, to me, been the first piece in answering that question of when you started to connect with sports. And it's always been basketball first. Outside of that, the other things started to come. And being at the age that I am, it was the Chicago Cubs that became prominent for my understanding of what Chicago sports represented. Yeah. And my true introduction to Chicago sports came with the '69 Cubs. Okay. And it's funny how you remember shit. It's funny how you get old and you forget shit. But as you get older, you remember specific shit. I never forget, family watching the Cubs because they had Billy Williams, they had Ernie Banks, they had Ron Santo, they had Fergie Jenkins, they had that squad back then, that 69 squad. New York was celebrating the Mets.
Yep.
We were celebrating Chicago because we had a squad back then. And I never forget, my dad brought home a little coffee mug, a blue and white Chicago Cubs coffee mug with all the signatures of all the players on it. That was it for me. That was it. I was like, because it was Chicago on it, and it was the Cubs, and you hear so much about it. You hear it on TV and the news. You hanging around your uncles and your older cousins. They all talking about it. Like, oh man, it became a Chicago thing. And like again, you're hearing about the Mets. Like, all right, this Mets, what is it? But that's New York. That ain't.
That ain't us.
That's not us. So that's when it really started to hit. And right after that, the year after that, it was 1970, and it was the Bulls. And that's when I went to my first basketball game.
At the old stadium.
At the old stadium.
Old Chicago Stadium.
Old stadium. Norm Van Leer, Bob Love, Chet Walker, Jerry Sloan, Tom Boerwinkle, Bob Weiss, that whole whip. I got to see them, and then 2 years later, I was back at the stadium for the All-Star game in 1972. I don't know how that got swung. I don't know how it got that swung. But my favorite player back in the day was Nate Archibald, so I got to see Nate Archibald play.
Yeah.
And this is when he was at Kansas City with the Royals.
Oh, love it.
So it was crazy, and it was just crazy. So all of that were the beginning stages of falling in love, and then the South Side kind of hit hard with the White Sox, and I was one of those babies that grew up, and that's when Bridgeport was off limits for us as black folks.
Yep.
You couldn't go to Bridgeport. It was mini Indiana. You're going to get shot. You're going to get hung. You're going to get tarred. You're going to get feathered. You're going to get driven over. Whatever's going to happen to you is going to happen to you.
Racial tensions and all that was going on during that time.
All that. Bridgeport was one of those dividing lines. You didn't go to Bridgeport. The Sox were located in Bridgeport. Mayor Daley is from Bridgeport. So in coming up, the Sox were never like an option for us to like because as black folks.
Because you couldn't get over there.
No, because it's almost like they didn't want us.
Gotcha.
Of course you couldn't get over there, but they don't want you.
Right.
And not that the Sox represented Bridgeport. You know what I'm saying? Because they were still a Chicago team.
Right.
But that area they decided to stay in, and they were, how Chicago works. It's local. It's neighborhood.
Yep.
And your team represented that neighborhood. So coming up, the Sox were not really an option because not only, like you said, we didn't belong there, they didn't want us there. Wow. But it took me getting older, understanding how regions work in sports, loving other teams outside of Chicago, falling in love with the New York Knicks, falling in love with the Mets. Watching Bob Gibson in St. Louis and like, oh my God, this is I thought Fergie Jenkins was dope, man. Bob Gibson, seriously having that type of understanding and growing up as a, pre-teenager, really getting an understanding of what that really is, it started to reshape the way I looked at sports, especially when it came to regionality. So the Sox, I started to get interested in because I was able to tap into a regionalness with them, but remove Bridgeport from the conversation in my own thoughts and mind. And Dick Allen days, you know what I'm saying? All that, everything, right, everything that followed that. So that's when the South Side of Chicago and me representing it and being in South Shore and understanding that Bridgeport is still a part of the South Side. The South Side kind of defines who I am. So I have to, I can remove Bridgeport from this and like really dive into the South Side. So it was around that time. I was probably about 10, 11 years old. I think 1970, I think Dick Allen came there in 72. Maybe I might have it wrong. But it was around 72, 73.
Okay.
I specifically 1972 is when the White Sox thing like hit me and I was like, okay. I'm done with the Cubs, right? Done with the Cubs. Done with the Cubs.
You came back to the South Side.
I'm a South Side guy now. So that's the long history of how the whole Chicago thing came up. And then, in the 70s, Blackhawks were a thing.
Yep.
Stan Mikita. Yep. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh man, this is it.
the sports town.
Yeah.
The sports city.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
just drives the energy.
Yeah.
No matter what city, part of the city you're from, like it's the connector, it's the builder.
Yep.
And that's beautiful that it was your father who was the one who kind of helped you navigate these waters and put you within the space to really fall in love with the game. No matter how much
he did his thing, great introduction. And then all of my uncles and my older cousins, man, they were deep into sports, even though they're only a couple of years older than me, but following their lead and following their understanding and their flow and their narratives and listening to what they were saying, because they were always the cool kids. I'm like, if my cousin Dave is saying this is the way to go. If my cousin Cliff is saying this is the way to go. You know what I'm saying? So following that, right. And then listening to all my uncles. And this city as well as Chicago, if nothing else, has two things that define it: churches and lounges.
That's real.
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Right. So I don't know.
Would you throw barbershop under the lounge space, or because that's one that still sits within that space?
Yeah, it does, but I don't think by volume.
Okay,
it can
got
connect.
you. Yeah, I got you.
You could go like you could go church for church, lounge for lounge in this city, and you got a nice battle on your hands.
Yeah, that's true.
Barbershops and salons and all that. I don't know if they equate to that number.
Okay.
As they do in bar and lounges.
Fair. That's fair.
And especially, I could say that and remove racial barriers from churches and lounges in this city.
Yeah.
We can go to Irish neighborhoods and you see the same damn thing. We can go to Polish neighborhoods and you see churches and bars,
That's true.
Over here we call them lounges, but it's the same thing.
Yep.
The ability for you to publicly get liquor in this city is unlike anything else outside of people practicing religion.
Yeah.
I happen to be a lounge baby. I was raised in lounges. So a lot of the sports understanding I got came from being with my father in lounges.
Yep.
My mother and my father divorced when I was in second grade.
Okay.
And he stayed in Chicago for maybe like 4 years before he moved to Colorado, to Denver. But in the time that he was here, he always took us on the weekends.
Yep.
And Dad never stopped doing his weekend things. And they used to have their club meetings at Poor Woods, at Willer's on, at the 50-yard line, at the checkerboard lounge, and everywhere that he and his crew went on Saturdays for their club meetings. There. We were raised up like we would go to the bars. They would sit us on the bars with our feet dangling on the bars. Seriously. And understanding and being a part of those conversations as a kid kind of shaped all the understanding I had about sports in the city, because that's what they talked about.
Yeah,
they talked about sports and they talked about women.
Yep.
And talked about what they were drinking.
Yep.
So I'm a product of all of that. But it was really cool because by the time I got to high school, being a lounge baby, I didn't even drink. But I knew every bartender at every bar up and down Stony Island, up and down 75th, 87th, and everywhere. I would be like, yo, I know what's going on. Hey, nephew, everywhere I went. And it was great in high school because I would like get off the bus, going to school, and like just stop in and say, I was one of those kids that still stopped and said hey to them all the time. So by the time I got into college,
the gift of gab was easy.
It wasn't even
relationship.
It wasn't even to give him the gab. It was the drinking age was still 21 in Chicago, but I went to school in New Orleans. It was 18.
Oh wow! So
Louisiana was the last state to pass the 21-year-old drinking law because of the tourism and Mardi Gras and all that in New Orleans. They kept it 18. So I didn't start drinking and cocktailing really until I got down to New Orleans when it was legal. And when I came back here, at 18, they're like, well, you could drink down there. You my nephew. It was good to go.
Everybody was good.
It was good to go. And because listening to my uncles and all that, sports, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, that's what you knew. You knew. Sports, women, and alcohol.
That's
and
it.
Drinking, that's all you knew.
And what did they all drink? They all drank scotch. So here I am, an 18-year-old dude, going up in lounges, seeing all my aunties, seeing all my uncles who were hanging, because they day drink. They day drink, and you catch them at night. So I come in town from beautiful school, and I go check out my uncles, hang out with them.
Yeah.
Might have a little girl with me or something like that. Come on, we go hang out. This, that, and the other. Man, and you drinking scotch.
Man,
because that's what I drank. And dude, like, you too young to be drinking scotch. I'm like, nah, I got knowledge. I was educated.
I
was educated correctly. But that education, to make it full circle, gave me a seat at the table in places most other 18, 19-year-olds wouldn't have.
Gotcha.
You take all the conversations where you learn coming up, especially from a sports perspective. And I'm not going to get to the politics and the socialization and all the races, all the other things, the conversation I heard coming up from being in lounges and the grown men talking. But when you sit in a bar and older gentlemen who are in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s are talking about sports and you're under 20, but you're drinking scotch, then you explain to them, I know my scotches. I know the difference between Cuddy Shark and Johnny Walker and Old Rarity. Mm-hmm. Like, whoa,
you've been around.
Right, you've been around. Okay. So now when they're having sports conversations and you can lend yourself to that, young fella know what he's talking about.
So now you're invited into the conversation.
I'm the only one that's under 40 in the conversation when it comes to those things. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? 100%. So it changes a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So that makes it full circle. So I was able to have those conversations with the older individuals, but also because I grew up on the bars listening to them, you still understand the skill set of listening. I was never that 18, 19-year-old kid that wanted to just show off that I had a little bit of knowledge of this because of the way I was raised.
Yeah.
It was, okay, there's still lessons to be learned.
Yeah.
So you get in and fit in. And you're never trying to go for a knockout. You jabbing, you know what I'm saying? You sticking and moving. But you let them know you can fight a little bit.
Yep.
And that's how I kind of came up and was able to gather information and understand and shape what I now use as a profession when it comes to sports.
Right. Exactly. I got you. So just going back quickly, did you ever, again, being a lounge, did you ever find it, hey, I'm going to go play a sport, I'm going to go play basketball, I'm going to go play soccer? Where did you find that passion at?
I just grew up playing basketball. That's it. Grew up playing basketball. I was always really, 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 really good, but I was small.
Yeah.
You know, but I was lit. Like I said, Nate Archibald was my idol, and I tried to do everything that Nate Archibald did.
Yeah.
Started officially playing basketball in 4th grade at Chatham YMCA on 83rd.
Yep.
Right off Drexel. So, that was. Started playing bitty ball there. Gil Walker was the commissioner. And Gil Walker's pretty famous in the city. He was the commissioner there. But we had some hella-fire runs over there. A lot of Chicago legends were playing, the Southside legends were playing over there in the senior biddy league when we were in the junior biddy league. And held my own over there. Then, played grammar school basketball. It was funny because I was always a point guard that didn't know how to play point because I was always, I didn't know how to run a team.
Score. I need to do my thing.
I know how to score. And outside of high school, because I went to Martin Luther Educational Center High School right across the pond from Mendel.
Okay.
But was always playing with my older cousins, always all over the city. Like when Navy Pier was the thing and it was open gym running there, go to Navy Pier. And we grew up in parks, played in parks. The park I came up in was Eckersall Park on 83rd, right on Yates, right. Yep. And I was the young cat that they were able to let into the older games. So I always held my own against those cats. And Timmy Hardaway was the one who came after me at that park.
Okay.
Little bug, because he's 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
So when I went away to college and left the park over there as being one of the guys at that park, when I came back from school, graduated, I was like, no, this is Tim's park
right,
now.
That's his park now.
Tim. I said, little Timmy, little Timmy's about 6'1" now. I'm like, oh, snap. But being able to, play basketball consistently at an early age and in grammar school, holding it down over at Martin Luther, then going to Luther South High School. And Luther South High School was funny. I don't know what type of recruiting they were doing over there, but every best player from this little small league they had in grammar school, the Lutheran League or whatever it was called back then, they were getting all of their best players to come over there one time in Luther South. And that was 1977.
Okay.
So I go over there and I'm thinking, because I'm running stuff, I'm doing, holding my thing down in Martin Luther. I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm the point guard here. And we go over to the summer camp over there. Funny story, I'll make it quick. Funny story, we go over to the summer camp that Luther South had before we were freshmen there. But we went to the summer camp, basketball camp, we went there. So there's a school called Resurrection. It's another school, this little consortium that they had.
Okay.
They had at Resurrection a couple of guys. One was Dennis Lindsay, who was a great point guard, and Pierre Cooper.
Okay.
Who wound up 6'7" center. They both played Resurrection. There's another cat, and I forgot where Mike went to grammar school at, but I met him in the summer camp. And Mike, I'm speaking of Mike Conley. Yeah, Mike Gold Medal. Okay. So Mike and I in 8th grade, we're playing in the summer camp. And he was lead scorer in his division, and I was lead scorer in my division, the way they had the camp set up. So finally, our two teams played each other. I forgot, it was either he had 51 and I had 50, or I had 51 and he had 50, but his team beat us. But Mike and I, because they was talking like, oh, dude, y'all about to play each other. Like, both our teams were undefeated. Like, So Mike and I had our little, let's go at it.
Of course.
Mike was way better. But like I said, I can hold my own, right? Yep. So we both dropped in the 50 area. I think he probably scored 51 because his team won. And, we were like, oh, man. And Mike's like, yeah, I'm coming here. I'm like, you coming here? I heard Pierre and Dennis. Yeah. I'm like, oh, we about to have a whip.
Yeah, about to have a whip.
Dude came up and said, y'all ain't nothing. They got a white boy in the day camp that's averaging 60.
Jeez. Who was that?
Right. And Mike Conley and I like, who? All right, tomorrow we going to come to camp early. We got to see who this white boy is. Man, white boy by the name of Ray Nutter. Dude, we went to go see him play. Mike Conley and I were like,
just mouth drop.
I think he might have scored 70 in the game. He was incredible. He was literally Larry Bird, just not the size. Ray was probably 6'2", maybe 6'3".
But he could put the ball in the basket.
Everyone on his team would not let him pass the ball. They took the ball out, gave it to him, and they didn't even want it. Like, Ray would try to pass it, like, nope. And he was just raining. Pam, pam, pam.
Wow.
He was averaging in the. Mike Conley and I thought we did something scoring 50.
Yep.
They're like, this dude is averaging 60. Yep. Whatever. We're like, oh my God. Ray, like, yeah, I'm coming here too. We're like, what the hell is going on? Yep. You know what I'm saying? What is the. I don't know if they could look into recruiting violations back then because they weren't used to, they weren't used to non-public schools.
Yeah, they was doing NIL before NIL even came around, right?
Man, and it came around, and they had a whip. But I'll say this to make a long story short: is when we took state in 1980, it was no surprise.
Wow,
we saw this coming. We saw it happen before it all happened. Before it all happened, and I got it was funny. Because I got cut from the squad that wound up going down to win state. I didn't make the 80s because they had a decent the freshman class that came in before us then was really good. Really good. So by the time we became juniors, that was that senior class. Okay. And they had a couple of all-staters on that class already from that class. So I honestly, I thought I was good enough to make it, but for what they were trying to do, I probably wasn't. Yeah. Because I was too small and I still did not know how to run a team. I still thought of myself as a scoring.
You want to be a scorer.
And, the Frost-Off coach was like, you're the biggest headache I ever had because you're not listening to anything I do, I say. But they wound up winning state, so it was no surprise.
Gotcha.
And then my senior year for tryouts, I went nuts. Yeah. Still not knowing how to run a squad, but I averaged like 31 points during the trials and still got cut. Yeah. But I wasn't. But that time he had a freshman coming in by the name of David Townsend, and Curtis Goodman were coming in, and he had a backcourt that was young.
I already knew exactly where it was going.
Yeah, but they were all like I was like 5'5" at the time. Yeah. So I'm smaller than I was now. And I am now. I ain't had no weight on me.
Right.
I was just, I was a decent hooper.
But you can get the ball in the basket when you needed to.
But I played well enough that to this day, cats on the squad, the Conleys, the Pierre Coopers, they're like, no, that's my point guard. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is my point guard.
Yeah, that's exactly what they said because they knew exactly what it was.
Right. They knew exactly what it was. You know, now, Mike Conley goes on to tell stories like, you remember I used to jump over you and dunk on you? Yeah, we do remember that, dude.
Of course he does. He's going to bring it all up back in the day.
But, so that whole grammar school to high school thing was kind of good. And I was playing ball all through high school. And once I got cut from Luke the South, I started going around the city and playing in neighborhood clubs. And I won a city championship at the High Park Neighborhood Club, playing with their thing when I wasn't playing. So I just, run around the city trying to hold my own. But it's the best thing that ever happened to me, man, because I got to see what unorganized basketball really was about. And that's more important.
Especially here.
Thank you, especially here. You go into parks that you would never go to.
Exactly. You crossing lines, you meeting new people. I mean, this gang, all of that, everything that happened within the space, you know, and that's just the reality of what Chicago is.
And playing against cats that are known in the city, and them not knowing you, but then them not like just ripping you apart. They're like, oh, you a little dude,
you can go.
Right? You can hold your own. All right, cool. Yeah. No, you all right.
You can come on. You can come back.
Right. Exactly.
We'll see you tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yep, come on back, dude. You holding it. You good. You decent. And that's when. Funny thing, it took me to stop or not being able to play organized basketball to learn how to run a squad. Yeah. I really started to learn how to run a squad because from like Nate Archibald being my idol coming up as far as like playing ball, and then it shifted from him to Isaiah Thomas. Yeah. Because Isaiah was a couple of years older than me. Older than me, ahead of me at St. Joseph's. So he became idol all through that high school. Isaiah was it. And then by the time high school started to end, I started to look at other point guards. And then I focused in on Johnny Dawkins at Duke. Okay. And once I started focusing on how Johnny Dawkins was running things, I'm like, oh, so that's what a point guard is supposed to do. So I started to really pick apart what it was like to run a squad. And realizing that at my size, Chicago, you're never going to have at least back in the day. Chicago, you were never going to have a great jump shot. Right. There wasn't a lot of inside basketball playing unless you were playing organized ball. Mm-hmm. Your thing was we outside. Right. We hooping outside. And that wind is not going to allow you. Exactly. Timmy Hardaway, God bless him, he had the smartest thing, shoot a knuckleball jump shot. Don't wait for the spin. I got an ugly knuckleball. Right. You look at Juwan Howard's shot. You look at Sean Marion's shot. You look at the spin on Tim Hardaway's shot. Chicago.
All had to battle to win.
That's it. You have to learn how to score outside to win. Mm-hmm. And I never understood that concept. I just, I was always able to find a way to score. But once I understood that scoring was not going to be a great thing of mine because of my height, and I can't keep going to the hole because as you continue to play basketball,
you'll be dope.
No, you see the size.
But you also see the size down there.
Where you see like, hey, I might play with a guy, every now and then, get a 6'7", 6'8" guy, in the post is fine. You could probably get around him or you could dish out, whatever. You start really playing in certain games, like where they say, man, you can come back, then you look up, 6'5", 6'7", 6, oh, snap. Mm-hmm. The guys that are guarding you now are no longer like 6 feet. Right. They 6'3". Right. You getting posted up nonstop.
Yeah, exactly. It's different.
So everything started to change. And you got to get by a cat who's 6'3" guarding you, which is cool because you do have quickness and craftiness on your side. But then you look up and it's a 6'5" guy.
Somebody right at the next level.
Right, next level. And then it's not even that. Your passing lanes are done. Yep. Because I play ball thinking you may be able to stop me to score, but you can't stop me from dropping dimes. But then I realized, no, that length goes different. Length just don't go up. Yep. So your angles were done. I'm like, I gotta learn how to play ball differently. So right around that time, I started to learn how to play ball differently, and it wasn't until I was literally probably my senior year in high school that I really understood what it took. Okay. To really be a point guard because I had no idea how to do that shit.
I got you. That's a great story. Understanding the dynamics across the city of Chicago, how it helped develop you, and it even challenged you. You know what I mean? It challenged you, say, hey, you can't be. I'm gonna cut you here, challenge you here, and do it this way.
Stops you from being arrogant, and stops you from being from thinking that you are something that you're not. Yeah. You could. Man, I used to walk around here with a T-shirt on that said "First Round Draft Choice 1986." I really thought I was nice.
You was that guy.
I was that guy.
You was the guy that nowadays at least when I was playing, it was like if you were the guy on the other end or on the court and you were wearing Jordans,
Right.
You clearly had to have been that guy. Now, if you got out there wearing some Jordans and you just terrible,
right,
we're gonna talk about you.
Right.
We're gonna dog you like you can't come back out here.
Right.
Like, you're not that guy.
But I grew up with, there's a guy where I grew up with playing, he's playing senior bid. His name was Daryl Sy. Daryl Sy is one of the greatest ball players, unspoken of ball players in Chicago. Daryl Sy used to wear mismatched shoes. And he used to tell us back when he said, I wear this because it's a sign of a star. So I wasn't sure with Jordan, but I showed him a mismatch.
You wear mismatch?
Daryl Sy wearing mismatch, I'm wearing mismatches.
He said, I'm doing it too. He said, I'm a star too.
I'm a star too. But I was, that was me telling myself that I was better than I was. Yeah. But that's all, that's part of what you have to do especially as a black person in this country, but definitely a black person trying to make moves in this city. But it goes beyond just basketball.
Yeah,
it's my mother. I grew up with an understanding. My mother, and I say it all the time, my mother raised us to believe that black men have to dream our ways through bars that don't bend. So that's when you start telling yourself that you're greater than what you are. Yeah. And it gets you through life. As my mother also said, a black man without arrogance ain't gonna be shit. You have to have a certain amount of arrogance. Now, how you display that arrogance
exactly
is what's going to define you as a man.
Yep.
I needed to get outside of that basketball circle that I was in to go play all across the city to humble myself.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
100%.
Like, oh, you all right. You ain't nice like right. Yeah, you ain't nice like that. And you look in the paper and you see, oh man, they writing about all these cats. This cat just smoked me and he ain't even in the paper. Yep. So I ain't.
Yep.
Let me chill.
Yep.
Let me really chill. There's a reason why you're not this. There's a reason why you're not that. But there's also a reason that you are this and you are that. Yep. So the beauty of Chicago basketball is that it's come with the greatest ones. You can talk to the greatest ones. They'll be like, no, this city will humble you when it comes to this game.
Sure will.
This city will humble you, and that's the beauty of it. But
professionally, high school,
anywhere you want to, cats,
it will humble you.
Do. Ekersall Park, I'll never forget it. I graduated 8th grade. After graduation, show you how a basketball fiend I was. After 8th grade graduation, my dad got me a red, white, and blue ABA basketball, an official one, right? After graduation, threw on, I think I had on, was it Dr. J? It was either, I think it was Dr. J's at the time. And on my Converse, No, because that was high school, so I forgot what I was wearing. Maybe Pro Kids. I can't remember what I had on, but threw on my shorts, threw on my gym shoes, walk straight to Ekersall Park with my new basketball, right? I go up there, man, and a cat is out there hooping at Ekersall Park with the same shoes, not gym shoes, like my dress shoes. Same shoes I had just graduated in.
You just graduated. Wow.
I got them from Tom McCann. That was a big deal because I thought I was flying clean. A dude is out there hooping in their shoes. Didn't give a shit about him. I'm thinking they're a big deal.
Right.
I didn't come out there and play in my graduation shoes. I went home and put on my Pro Kids or whatever because I'm hooping. This guy didn't care. He's out in the same shoes. I get out there play. Man, this dude dusted.
Really?
Man, he was assing everybody out there. Dude, I don't know where he came from. He had to be in his early 20s or something like that, just out there.
But he said, I'm giving it to you.
Dress shoes and polyester cut-off fringe shorts.
Wow. He's giving it to everybody.
Giving it to cats. Giving it to me because I was the one that had to check him. And I'm trying to tell him, you out here disrespecting my graduation shoes.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm going to disrespect you. But that's the beauty of Chicago basketball.
But that's how it is.
It humbles you.
You have to be humbled every now and then.
Dude, I walked back home a different person than when I left home when I graduation did. But that's the beauty of Chicago.
That's the beauty of Chicago. So, of course, you had the love of the game. And then you find yourself going down to Xavier. It's a different type of game here. It's a different type of culture here. Yeah. I'm sure there was a little culture shift, a culture shock a little bit for you. What was that transition like for you to get down to Xavier, down in Louisiana?
That's a good question because I have family from the South, but we rarely went down there to visit them, so I didn't have that South upbringing.
Yep.
So one of my first clear introductions to the soil, as we used to call it, because the South is one of the only places in America that we black folks go down and touch the soil and understand our history. Mm-hmm. When I first got on the soil, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't have that previous stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the family that we had down south used to come up north, here to Chicago to visit us, you know, family gatherings and stuff like that. I never had that. You spend the summer down south.
Yep.
Like I said, my mother and father separated when I was in second grade. Our summers we spent in Colorado with my father, you know, or working or whatever, you know, what we were doing here.
Yeah.
So we didn't have that down south pedigree that a lot of cats from here, because of the great migration that's coming here, we didn't have that. So when I got down to New Orleans, I'm not going to say it was a culture shock. I just wasn't prepared for everything that the South was about. And New Orleans to me is different in the aspect of being in the South, the same way Chicago is different in the aspect of being in the Midwest. We're a Midwest city, but there's no other Midwest city like us. We're different than any other Midwest city. New Orleans is in the South, but there's no other city in the South like New Orleans.
I agree.
So not only did I had to get adapted to being down south, I had to get adapted to what New Orleans was. Like. So the little bit of knowledge of what the South was like that I did have, I had no knowledge of New Orleans. I even had a cousin who went to school. That's the reason I wound up going to Xavier's, because one of the reasons, because my cousin Camille was at Loyola University in New Orleans, and she was my favorite cousin. And I followed Camille anywhere. And when the opportunity came to go to Xavier, because actually I was going to Florida A&M.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
On a film?
On a basketball scholarship.
And how'd you not?
Because my mother was an educator. I had gotten 3 basketball scholarships.
Okay.
Not playing high school basketball my final 2 years, but I got 3 basketball scholarships out of high school for just playing around the city. Yeah, one was this Wisconsin Whitewater.
Okay.
Florida A&M, and I forgot what the third one was. But I got 3 little offers. But my mother was an educator, and she did not believe in anybody having power for paying for your education.
And that's what basketball would have done.
Exactly.
At those institutions.
Yeah. She's like, no, the minute you don't come to practice, they can strip your own nose.
Strip it right up, yeah.
Education was big. She's like, no, my mother had 2 master's degrees and finished college at 20 years old.
Wow. And during that time, that's unheard of.
She went to Howard University. She didn't play. My mother was for real.
Oh, wow.
So education was the biggest thing in the world to her, and she was not going to let anyone have control over whether her kids were going to be educated or not. That was on whether she could afford it or not. That was still going to be under her control. So that's why the basketball scholarships didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? They didn't happen at all.
Yep.
But when I got down there, like I said, my cousin's there. You know, I'm thinking, I can go down there and maybe, hoop a little bit or whatever. But it was getting adjusted to New Orleans. That was a bigger thing than getting adjusted to the South, because I had no idea New Orleans is its own city. It's its own Wakanda.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. So getting adjusted to that was the hugest thing in the world. But the beauty of the adjustment came in meeting people from all over the country.
All over the country.
Coming
all to this one location.
My first roommates, one was from Compton, California, and the other was from Port Arthur, Texas.
Oh, wow.
And me from Chicago. So we're 3 in this room. So getting to learn them. Then you had the Chicago connection, right? You know what I'm saying? 'Cause what wound up happening at Xavier University is, we say that they had more people from, I think Chicago was the largest contingency of people outside of Louisiana that went to Xavier.
Okay.
Right. It was like Polish people here in Chicago. Like, we got more people here than they do in Poland. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it was the same thing going down there. So a lot of Chicago people down there. But you didn't, you had your Chicago people, but you got to know people from other places. So I got to hang out with guys from Houston. I got to hang out with guys. One of my boys, King Hosendorf. My roommate's name was King. He was from Port Arthur, Texas.
Okay.
There was another guy by the name of King Hosendorf who was from Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
And we used to play tennis together. So he would hoop and play tennis together. One of my other boys from Washington, D.C., my man Steve. Steve, man, I got to meet D.C. and understand what D.C. is like.
Yeah.
Then you get to hang out with the brothers from New York. And this is the early stages. You got to understand, this is 1981.
Yeah.
this is the early stages of hip hop.
Yeah,
like, and so the New York cats are bringing all
sound
type
down,
of stuff, right?
all on the tapes.
Right. But I was coming from Chicago with the boombox blasting the house mixes.
Uh-huh.
From WBMX and WGCI, all this.
Yeah.
So I was bringing house music to New Orleans while they were bringing hip hop down New Orleans. So while you're making that adjustment, you're still getting to learn how other lives live and all that. So it made the adjustment a lot easier because all I had to really get used to was the city of New Orleans. I didn't really have to get used to the people and the culture altogether. It was the city. Yeah. The cultural piece came from all over the country. Right.
And that's what colleges and universities do for you when they expose you to those things. You may not ever go see, okay, I might not never make it to Long Beach, California. I might not make it to Compton. I might not make it to Jacksonville. But, okay, we all going to meet here at this university and explore each other's.
See what their lives are like. See what they bring to say, how they look at life and all this, that, and the other, man. And it was, and it was, that learning piece was so amazing, especially Xavier, because Xavier, as small as it is, the reach that they have and the people that they bring there is unbelievable. Yep. And the funny thing, we always say this, especially when it comes to women. Yeah. You talk about, we say women came to Xavier to humble themselves. The same way they were talking about, like, go around Chicago and the city will humble you from a basketball perspective. Make it, women used to have the most. Xavier would, I didn't know if they recruited them. I didn't know how they got there, but they had a reputation for having some of the most beautiful women in the country come to that school as far as black women are concerned. We were the school that, like Jane Kennedy, if you remember Jane Kennedy.
I don't.
News reporter.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, from, she was married to Leon Isaac Kennedy from Penitentiary, and she's the most beautiful black women in the world. She was from a place right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, called Lake Charles, Louisiana. Okay. And they used to tell us all the time, like, we not coming from there, in that era, Jane Kennedy was the most beautiful woman in the world. And people from Lake Charles be like,
that ain't nothing.
She regular.
That's regular.
She made it out because she talked better than all of us. That's it. We're like, what? And then you start seeing the women from Lake Charles and from the surrounding areas. You're like, oh, shit, they ain't lying. So the best looking from California, the best looking from New Jersey and Philadelphia, the best from Florida, the best from Chicago.
Oh, the melting pot just come right down
all down to Xavier University. But the women would be humble. They left their hometowns as beauty queens and came to Xavier and just normal. It was an adjustment.
Wow.
But as guys, we would sit around and talk about that. Yeah. Because we were like, oh, she thought she was fine where she came from, but nah, she amongst the beasts.
Yeah. She was the best of the best.
She was the best of the best. Now, how you going to adapt to that? How you going to adapt to that? And that became universal conversation. Yeah. And talk about learning how guys are. In the dorms and all, because we didn't have mixed dorms. It was still like boys over here. Yeah, one boys dorm and three women's dorms. Yep.
Because the numbers were always
10 to 1, 11 to 1, 12 to 1. And that's just on campus. You go outside the campus, it was insane.
I'm sure. Yep.
But you got to know from a regional standpoint that as much as we're different, a lot of our thought processes and sensibilities are still the same. A lot of our tastes sometimes are still the same. Mm-hmm. So a lot of that got brought together through sports and speaking about women that were on campus. Yep. Like, man, we got this the finest girl ever from Mobile, Alabama. Yeah. And she come here. I went to high school with her, man. She came here. She's like, man, that's my homegirl. I talk to her all the time. And like, she depressed damn near. Yeah. I got to help my girl get her game up.
Help her get it together.
Right, help her get it together. And we would have these conversations. Like, man, no, that's my girl from Chicago. We came here. Like, I knew her, back in Chicago. Yeah. And everybody in Chicago was like, no, she one of the finest women in the city. Yeah. Or girls, because we were teenagers, she wasn't. And she come here and she like, oh.
Yep, she got a little competition.
Right. She got a little competition. So, hey, don't let that get you down. Don't let you get you. Step up. Step the game up. Step the game up. So all of that was part of the adjustments and going to understand the South and understand New Orleans. And then once you get into that, you feel comfortable. Yep. Because you feel that you're understanding, you're learning, but you also feel normal. Yeah. And all of that happens at once. And it happens at the exact same time you're trying to learn a different way of learning. because the college education is way different than the high school education, and that responsibility piece is real.
Yep, it's all on you.
Yep,
you got to take hold of your education.
And this is when it all comes back to understanding that second semester in college. And I think the second semester always shifts everything for everybody.
Yep.
Because a lot of folks that you hung out with, you got to know, that shaped your understanding of leaving home for the first time, for real, you don't see those people come back.
They ain't coming back.
Because that first semester killed them.
It kills you.
That first semester killed them.
For many reasons.
Killed them.
Many reasons.
Killed them. I remember I came back my first semester, I think my grade point average was a 2.5. And, my mother's like, this your last one. And I never had that in high school. You know what I'm saying? Never had that in grammar school. Never. My mother, like I said, she's an educator.
That's your one. I'll give you one pass.
I'll give you one. And we were going through stuff at home because she had divorced my stepfather at that time, and I came home to a whole different home.
Different.
Which is a whole nother story I won't get into. But, I came home. So, there was a lot of stuff going on. But after that, and going back and seeing a lot of the cats and a lot of the girls that were becoming friends, we were crew and all of a sudden, the fact that they didn't make it back that second semester was eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
So I give you that long-ass answer to tell you how the beginning of it started as far as adjusting to the South.
Yeah.
But also that second semester changed
everything.
And because there was a hyper-focus on making sure, you know what I'm saying, making sure that you got to come back for your second year.
Yep.
I didn't learn anything really about New Orleans until my sophomore year.
Yeah. You had to focus and get
Yes,
everything together.
Yes, sir.
As you should have. Right, as you should.
Yeah.
So, you're around so many different cultures. You're around different friends and people coming in all together. And like you said, you and your guys got together and got to talk and all of those.
Building intramural basketball teams too. That's another big part.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's just a community connection.
Yeah.
You have to do it. Exactly. Sports just connects so many different things.
It does.
But even with that, was this when you started to begin your knack for articulating words and your artistry in this space, or did that come later on down the road?
That came kind of later on, man, because I went down there. One of my uncles was a lawyer.
Okay.
And I wanted to be like Uncle Kermit. Because Uncle Kermit was like, he just had, and I always had an interest in politics, always. Growing up, the way I was raised, politics was always a big thing, especially in the city.
For sure.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to be a lawyer like Uncle Kermit. I'm going to study pre-law. That was it. And I went down there and we don't have pre-law here, but we have political science. I'm like, there it is. Let's go. So I focused in studying political science when I went down there. Sophomore year, money got funny. Mom, she's like, I can't keep, like you said, she wasn't going to take any money from anybody else.
Right.
She probably took us some loans from, my uncle or, friends, whatever, to keep, me down there. But her resources were spent. My father was like, nah, you kind of on your own, which is cool. No. Understood. It's a funny story behind it. I'll tell you off air. It's one of my favorite stories ever. I'll tell you off air about that. But it also played a large role in who I ended up becoming.
Right.
Now, money got funny. Now, precursor to all of this, I started working officially at 14 years old. We were, my mother was the sole provider as far as money was concerned in the family. And we weren't struggling, but things weren't what they could have been. And I couldn't sit around as a half-ass grown man or half-ass, grown whatever, right? Knowing I was capable of doing stuff. So outside of cutting lawns to get, your little dollars here and washing dishes, doing whatever you could, I started a little basketball camp in a little back alley, in my back, in the driveway to make a little money. But I wound up walking down to McDonald's on 79th and Yates, which is 4 blocks away from my house, and lying on the application at 14 years old so I could start working there. You're supposed to be 16.
Right.
So I started working at McDonald's when I was 14. And I say that all to you to say is that I work study when I got to Xavier. So I had work study there. Money started getting funny. I was able to pay for part of my education through Pell Grant and from work study and all this and other. And when my mother contributed, it just wasn't enough.
Okay.
So I had to literally drop out at the end of my sophomore year.
Wow.
I had to leave. I had to come home. Now, came home. The first summer I came home from Xavier after my freshman year, I was lucky enough through my Uncle Sonny, who was an assistant commissioner with the Department of Sewers, got me a summer job doing summer payroll with the city of Chicago. He told my mom, he said, Maggie, have Scoop, the minute you get back in town, go down here, fill out an application, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure he does this. And you know how politics in Chicago work. I'm pretty sure my application got pulled.
It's going to get pulled.
Right? But so keep in mind, I started working at 14. I was doing work study all through school. I came home from college, Uncle Sonny, job summer with Chicago, got on, started doing payroll. That was my summer job, my freshman year. Sophomore year, right?
Yep.
Came out, had to drop out.
Wow.
At the end of my sophomore year, right?
Yep.
Because I had done freshman and sophomore summers. In the sophomore year, I had to drop out. So coming back to the summer, did the summer job then, right?
Yep.
Dropped out, and they were like, well, if you want to stay and work, you know.
You can stay here.
Stay here, work, right. Just instead of leaving and coming back next summer.
Yeah, just stay here and I have to go to school and you got a job here. You good.
That's basically what it was. Wow. So at the end of my sophomore year, when it was like, okay, we don't, and it was like, it wasn't like something we went into the summer thinking that was going to be a thing.
Right.
It was when August came around, it's like, all right, here's your balance. You got to pay your balance, and you have to pay the upfront tuition for the semester. It was like we just didn't have it.
Didn't have it.
So that's all like, I was like, you got to sit out. You got to sit out a semester till we get this thing right.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough because I worked the 2 summers with the city that they were like, they just put me on. They just hired me. They just hired me right there. Like, no, we got payroll. You know the payroll. Let's go. So I did payroll with the city for that semester.
Okay.
And it was because it was that whole year.
The whole year.
I went back.
I got you. And went back.
Got the money up.
Yep.
Was able to pay, off the balance, and went back. Able to get back in things, right? Start back up. Nice. And when I went back, the one thing I did learn in the process, now the story's about to get deeper than it needs to get. I went back, and when I went back, I had learned that, I don't want to say I learned it, Jabari. I just want to say I realized. That's a better word. I realized that as much as I enjoyed learning what I was learning in political science and getting into law, that part of that last semester there, I was losing interest in what law was becoming.
Gotcha.
Practicing law and learning law are 2 different things.
Yeah.
You're starting to learn cases and actually doing case studies. And I'm like, I'm 19 years old. I didn't know this was a part. I saw my Uncle Kermit being a lawyer. I just want to be a lawyer.
That's a part of the process, a part of the program.
Right. So at this point, making money and me paying off the balance, I'm now contributing, if not paying, for my education at this point. Yep. Mom, don't worry about it. I got it. City job is decent money. I can pay off this bill and I can save money and this, that, and the other. So at this point, I'm like, I'm paying for the majority of my education.
Yep.
I might as well study some shit I'm really, really, really going to enjoy. Here's where the answer to your question really comes in. I've always been interested in music. I'd always been interested in radio because I always wanted to. I listened to BMX and GCI on all these radio stations, Tom Joyner on WJPC and all that. Mm-hmm. Purvis Band on Smack Dab at WSDM and Herb Kent and all the radio DJs and, listen to black radio, listen to Steve Dahl and them on the loop. Radio was a thing and music was a thing. And I always believed that musically, because that was a big thing, I knew more about music than these dudes did. Yeah. Music was my counter to basketball. I thought I knew enough about music because I studied. I just loved it. And I'm like, I could be a radio program director. It wasn't being a DJ. I'm like, I want to be a program director because they're the ones who select and do and program the music that's being played. I'm like, I know about this. They playing the same 6 songs over and over. There's too much other music out there that they not playing. They weren't playing stuff by Prince. They weren't playing stuff. They would play the Ozzy Brothers, but they weren't digging into Confunction. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, y'all are out here playing, who I love, Queen, but y'all would play Rod Stewart and Queen. Y'all ain't playing the average white band.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all are not like digging deep into like Steely Dan. Y'all, there's a lot of music y'all ain't messing with.
Even touching on right
now. I'm like, we need to go do this. You need some like, Cat Stevens, Dog and Donut. Y'all need to be playing that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I want to be a program director, right? So, and I loved, my mother raised us on getting information, so I was always reading the newspaper, to the point that my mother would have like, she was a current events nuts and would tell my brother and I, if y'all don't know what the current events are in the day, you all can't eat. Like she would fix dinner, sit in front of us. So what happened today?
Oh, so she made sure you guys were going out and going getting your knowledge.
Yeah. Like President Nixon resigned and we didn't know it. And she's like, so what happened today? He was like, we don't know. Better go find out. There went no internet.
Of course, you can just Google from the phone and be like, oh, yeah, let me go to this.
Yep. I would get in trouble in school, man, and go to the office and sit outside the office of the principal's office just to read the newspaper. Like I was, I was a current events lover. So I'm like, that media thing was there, that. So I started to connect. Like I love music. I want to do something in radio. Yep. I love current information. I love news and stuff like that. And I loved magazines. Yeah. Like the one thing me and my best friend in high school always wanted to do, we always said we wanted to have our own magazine. And I started off as, Right On magazines, but then by the time we got into high school, the magazines were Rolling Stone, Esquire, and Billboard. It was
those are the main ones.
I'm like, man, and especially Rolling Stone, we're like, oh, we could do that, and of course Ebony and Jet and all this and the other, but from that standpoint, it was like we realized that magazines were special, and we always said we wanted to have our own. We said this in high school, we were going to have our own magazine. Yep. So I did not know that you could actually study all of these things under one umbrella. Yep. So when I went back to enroll back in school my junior year, I'm like, I'm changing majors. Yeah. I want to study communication.
Exactly. There you go.
And they're like, yep, you can study math. All the stuff that you're interested in, you can study. I'm like, that's all. Because understand, I'm paying for this at this point.
You might as well get what you want out of it.
Right. I am 21 years old at this point, maybe 21. Yeah, I'm 20 going on 21. I'm like. Yeah,
you need to use your money. If you're going to use your money for this, do something you want.
Spend it. There, you can build a career. You can there's careers happening inside this, so why not? Why not learn about it? And they told me, they said, well, Scoop, the bulk of your classes that you took in your first 2 years were political science. I took 18 hours my freshman year. The semesters. Yep. And they're like, you had, 18. I went in taking 18, which was dumb, and that's probably why we got 2.5. Yep. Went back, took 12, came back sophomore year. All right, I got it down. I think I took 18, whatever it was. But I was usually taking 18 hours. Yep. But at that time, I had accumulated 30 hours in political science classes. And they're like, you're 2 classes away from already having that as your major. Might as well double major.
There you go.
So that's what I wound up doing. Okay. So the second half of my college situation, I had mass communications as my major. And I took the other 2 classes. I got the other 2. And other ones were like electives and all this and the other. But by the time that happened, everything had changed.
I got you.
You get what I'm saying? Yep. Everything had changed. Yep. And the whole education piece, I got New Orleans down. I'd been back to Chicago. I went back there, started working still, and kept the job with the city every summer. I always kept that job. Yep. And it just changed everything in my outlook in life because of what I had been through, what I had gone through to like raise things to a degree of self-sufficiency that I didn't have at 18 and 19, but now I had at 20, 21, and 22. Got kicked. Yeah, couldn't go back to the dorms. They kicked me out already, so I had to find that's a whole nother story. Right, it's a whole nother story. But everything's, and I hate to say this, started playing less and less basketball.
Okay.
You know, but basketball was still important to me, but the playing part of it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was more of the workspace. How am I going to find myself in this media space, trying to create things and
build
get internships and do all right, understanding this, you know. Because in my mind, if I'm double major, if this is my new major, I have 2 years to catch up on this.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? I have 2 years now.
Yeah.
When I was not thinking about it in political science the first years, you're not thinking about it. You're like, I have 4 years to make it my major, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But now you're like, I got to get 36 hours in 2 years in this field in order to, all right, so the focus has shifted a little bit and a lot. And once again, I still had to have money to pay for this and not like anything I could do to relieve some of that financial struggle on my mother, I could. And keep in mind, I still got a younger brother.
Yeah.
That she's dealing with, you know. So it was that whole conundrum of just shit going on, but you had to, you raise yourself up real fast.
For sure.
Yeah, so that changed everything in being in New Orleans and being down south. And I say that all to say is that's where the interest in writing started. Gotcha. That's where the shift started. Okay. I went in wanting to be one thing and wanting to study one thing and wanting to learn one thing, and that was law. And by the time I finished the back half, that interest in what communications was had really started to shape my entire ideology about life. Yeah. Not just what I wanted to be, but about life, because through what I learned at Xavier in studying communications, I really got a full understanding of the role communication plays in our everyday life.
Yep. It's everywhere.
It wasn't just that we use these resources to gather information. These sources use us to shape the way we think.
That's right.
Right, so that's what I was learning at that time. And that shaped every fucking thing that I thought about and how I approached life. It was like, this is not just fun and games.
Yeah.
You know, I learned that there was a reason that every newspaper writes their paper at a 6th grade level. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And how they try to attract things. I learned how advertising works and how it shapes the minds of individuals who engage with it.
Nobody's talking about you picking that up. And,
but we were being taught that. I'm at a black university that's the beauty of going to HBCU. Yep. They're teaching you not just about what it is you're trying to learn. They're teaching you what it is you're learning and how it affects you as a black individual and how it affects black society, especially in this country. Yeah. So I was learning not only about how the news media works, but how it's directly impacting us. Yep. So you learn that it's not happenstance when you're watching the news and they're telling the story of an incident that happens in the news while they're always able to find that brother and sister who cannot complete a sentence. Yep. But when they show stories that involve other individuals that are not black, everybody speaks fluently. Mm-hmm. You understand that that's not by happenstance.
That's not by happenstance. There's a decision that was made about that.
And you understand who is the person making that decisions. As a kid, you're thinking, the reporter did that. No, the reporter didn't do that. Because the reporter can't do anything except for the producer telling that reporter what he or she needs to do. The producer says, no, we don't want that person. We need somebody to speak better. We need somebody to look better. We need somebody to represent this better. Yep. Go out and find somebody else for us to use for this clip. You're learning all of that. And you're learning also how that affects you as an individual and your people. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So all of that starting to happen within these 2 years. And it's like, I get.
So that space helped you navigate where you are today, and it stays with you because you're still using that same.
It's learning the truth. It's literally learning the truth. Yeah. It's literally, so that back half of that second year, it opened everything up. So to answer your question, that's when it really started to hit. Wow. And I told you all that because I don't think you could tell one without telling the other because they're both connected.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And keep in mind now, with me still having my foot in political science, but still want to be a lawyer, I'm attaching legally how all this functions.
So you're seeing how it's structured.
Right.
You created your own formula to, I understand how this is over here. And I'm going to tweak it and put it in these words and craft it the way it needs to be said.
Yep. And I'm going to put a nugget and a bow tie on this at the same time. At the same time this is happening, there's a magazine that started right at the end of my last semester at Xavier University. This magazine called The Source. Now, a year before that, and this is hip-hop starting to get big. This is right before Run DMC had released Raising Hell.
Yep.
So it was in the, because down there.
The Source was that?
Huh?
I said The Source was that?
Yeah, but this
before it even.
This pre-The Source.
Yeah.
This pre-The Source. So running in with big time. Like Crush Groove had just come out like the year before. But everything Running In were doing was hitting hard.
Wow.
Kool Moe D hitting hard.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? All of that stuff,
Yep.
everything that's popping, it's beyond the Sugar Hill Gang and all that. It's all the stuff coming out of New York. And it was just like hitting hard. In the year before 86, that was my last semester there. Right before that, there was an instructor by the name of, I can't think of his name, Dr. Kent. I was sitting at my crib, and this is like this is going to my second year studying mass communications. And this is what shit like really shifted. He said, I came in there one day and said, Dr. Kent, of all the things that go on in communications, mass communication, everything, I want to get into advertising. Because advertising part, you study.
Part, yeah.
He's like, okay. He says, cool. He said, I need you to do me a favor. Go and write me something. And he went to his desk and put back on my desk. He said, write me something about this paperclip. No bullshit. Like, okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, he said, write me something about the paperclip. Next time I come back to class, have me something written about paperclip. So I go to crib, do this and the other, and I'm thinking like, what the hell? This is a paperclip.
Yep.
He wants me to write something about a paperclip. I didn't get it. I didn't know what I'm like, it's a paperclip. It holds papers together.
Right. How can you stretch beyond that?
But I didn't know. I didn't get it, man. And so I went back and he's like, I got nothing. It's a paperclip. A paperclip's the job. A paperclip's to hold paper together. That's what it does. He's like, that's what I thought you were going to say. And he said, that's what I thought you were going to do. But that's why I gave it to you, because you came to me saying you want to get into advertising. This is what advertising is. Advertising is you making me feel that I need this paperclip in my life. And just telling me to hold papers together is not going to do it. You also need to tell me why that paperclip is better than all the other paperclips out there. Mm-hmm. That's advertising. He said, you kids watch TV and hear commercials and think that's... No, that's not advertising. This is advertising. This is what it is. Changed everything for me because it made me not want to fuck with advertising. But that's when I understood what writing was about. Yeah. It was at that moment.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, so all the stuff I've been reading in my mind, it still gets down to writing, because he said, write me something about this paperclip. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like come back and tell me something. He's like, write me everything. He said, all these commercials start with the written where you have to write this. You have to explain this to me. This is your pitch. That's what one of the pitch was. Yeah. So I'm like, that's when he hit me when writing was. And I say that to say, one of the final assignments I did for Dr. Kent's class was he said, one of the assignments he gave was create something that tells a story that you feel is not being told. Now, one of my work study jobs at Xavier University was in the library. I worked for Mrs. Brown. She ran the library, and I worked for Miss Brown. One of the things I did in the library all the time, because it was free, and I told you, there were 3 magazines, Rolling Stone, Esquire, Billboard. Couldn't afford Billboard magazine. Billboard magazine was $162 a year subscription.
Yep, the subscription.
Working in the library, it came to the library. So I got to read it free. I always read Nelson George, who was the black writer for Billboard. He did the R&B music section for Billboard magazine. I would always read Nelson George. Nelson George was my first, outside of Alex Haley. Alex Haley was my first black hero writer that I followed. But after that, it was Nelson George, because I always read everything he wrote in Billboard. I would go to the library, work study, and I would go straight to Billboard. Yeah. Sometimes I'd tear the pages out, whatever, but it was Nelson George. And Nelson George was writing, he was the only writer in the country really writing about New York hip-hop. Wow. So I knew about EPMDs, all the stuff that we weren't getting, all the
one that
other
kept
cats.
you connected to
Like I
it.
said, we knew about Rum, we knew about the Cool Mod's, all this and the other, but the
ones
underground stuff there.
He had to go find and seek. He had to go to the hood.
That's right.
He had to go to the box.
But he's from New York, but he's telling us, so he's telling us these stories. And what I was getting when Dr. Kent gave that last assignment was like, I don't know if anybody's writing about hip hop like Nelson George is doing, and doing it in a larger form outside of a column. Yeah. So what I did was I created my own column for Dr. Kent. That was the last time I did for him. I think I still have it somewhere from 1985. I think it was 1985 or early 85, whatever. Yep. It was called The Scoop the Source. And it was about like everything going on, and basically I kind of stole what Nelson was writing, but I had a couple of cats that a lot of the guys, I was one of my best friends, dude I was really hanging out with at the time. This is my guy to this day, my man Rolly. He's from New York, so he's the one who always, and all cats are getting the taste, but Rolly and I were like deep into hip hop. So he would always like bring me that shit was going on in New York. So he's the one that introduced me to Grand Wizard Theodore and Grandmaster Cass and all these cats that nobody was talking about, but he'd have the underground tapes. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So I was like getting the real joint.
It was the plug.
He was my plug, right? And that's what I kind of wrote this thing about the shit that Floyd was giving me, the stuff that Nelson was writing about, all the other cats from other parts in the East, whether it's New Haven, Connecticut, or Baltimore, or, Philly, or, whatever, New Jersey. Yep. So I wrote this 2-page, like, little column on hip-hop, and, like, that was my final piece for Dr. Kent called The Scoop and the Source. Wow. Before I even knew the Source was around. Right. Then after that, a year later, Source Magazine started. Wow. Now, I'm not saying if it's serendipitous and nothing like that, but I say that all to say is that when the Source Magazine started, that's when I knew there was a chance to carve a niche in non-traditional writing when it came to black culture.
There was a space.
It was different than just reading Nelson George. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's different than seeing things in a column.
Different. You could see it. You could visualize
it was 80 pages of this. Oh, wow. Different. You know what I'm saying? One column and 80 pages, like, oh, shit, this is a thing. Yeah. It's big enough to be a thing. Those two incidents changed everything I was connected to what I thought I could do from a standpoint of developing a profession. Wow. The best way I could put it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Crazy, right?
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So, all right, give me this then. So, you spent some time at Morehouse, correct?
No. I went to Howard.
I'm sorry, went to Howard. I'm sorry, not Morehouse.
Right.
Howard.
The funny thing, my cousin, I mentioned earlier, my cousin David went to Morehouse. One of my older cousins I used to follow. He was phenomenal. You need to have him here. He's just a phenomenal dude. Okay. But he went to Morehouse. Okay. And he had a white Morehouse windbreaker with Morehouse, burgundy leather. I used to walk around New Orleans and Louisiana and Xavier University.
Thought that you was.
I had my Morehouse jacket on, but we used to drive from, Louisiana to New Orleans to Atlanta all the time. Because Atlanta got the circle, Clark, Spelman, AU, the whole AU thing. We used to go down there all the time.
So you already have felt connected.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, you're in that kind of HBCU kind of connection. Yeah. So then that's when you went up to Chocolate City, D.C.
There's a gap between there.
Okay. What was the gap? What was the gap then?
Gap was graduating from New Orleans, graduating from Xavier, finished in 1986. Gotcha. Graduated in because I had to say, it finished off some.
Gotcha.
Yeah, finished at the end of 86.
Right.
So wound up walking in 87. Was supposed to walk in 86. You know this, but I'm pretty sure if you don't know it, you've heard it, but it's true. I was told my sophomore year, they're gonna fuck you. HBCUs are gonna fuck you.
Wow.
And my man warned me about that. So when it came time for my final semester to be done, when I went in January for that in 86, for my final semester, they're like, and always staying in touch with my advisor. Yep. Even though I switched advisors, the whole process, I switched majors and all this, I double major, switch major, had to go to another advisor. There was a class There was a class you were supposed to take your first semester, when your junior year first semester, that you were supposed to take. That was part of your requirements.
The only person who knew that was the council.
I don't know that. Right?
You don't know it.
Right.
You sitting there like, you got to be kidding.
I'm following y'all lead on what I need to do.
And you're going to tell me
So you got to come back one more semester to complete this class. But that, once again, Pell Grant, still on Pell Grant, still paying this and the other. In order to get that money, you can't just take one class. You have to take at least 9 hours.
Oh, jeez.
And that gives them full semester. So I had to take out a loan to pay for the semester because I wasn't expecting this. And I was like, my man told me this was going to happen. He told me 2 years ago that I'm like, I'm doing everything I can to not let this happen. He's like, they're going to.
They're going to find a way.
They're going to find a way to get their money. And they found a way to get their money from me for that last semester. And
you say you was moving through it too fast.
Yeah, but I just wasn't. I didn't see where they were because I didn't see everything seen on paper like it was like all good.
Yeah.
So my last semester there, man, I was taking 3 classes. 2 of them I didn't have to, but I had to take because they had to be on the records. Man, my roommate and I wild. We were wilding out, dude. We were wilding out, and still kept a work study job because I still had to pay. But I was on campus maybe. I had to be on campus maybe at max 10 hours a week, maybe. So it was, and we stayed in an apartment out in the suburb in Metairie. We were all it was. Yeah. It was not good. It was not pretty. So anyway, I say that to say is that graduated, finished school, primarily paid for it myself. Had a real asshole moment with my family.
Okay.
Because my mom threw a graduation party for us at the house.
Yeah.
And I know my uncle and my auntie, my last 2 years there, was sending me like $25 checks a week. Just to like, hey, here's your weekend money. Just survive, right? But other than that, nobody in my family, when we were struggling to keep me in school, gave anything. But they all came to the party, to the graduation party. Oh, we so proud of you. They said, oh, we knew you could do it. I like, and literally, man, I, in the middle of the party, did like the whole like clink clink of the glasses. Yeah. I literally like, fuck all y'all. Seriously. Like when we needed this shit, none of y'all here, but y'all said, y'all, fuck every one of y'all.
Y'all part of the celebration, but y'all wasn't part of the journey.
I was.
You was tight.
Said it. My mother was like,
yeah.
But she knew, you know what I'm saying? It's like none of y'all came through. Yeah. It's all love to fuck y'all. Seriously. So that was not my shining moment. But we did have that, and upon graduation, the city of Chicago didn't even give me an opportunity to look for a job when I graduated. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The minute I touched base back in Chicago, they're like, no, we got like the same way they held me down in that gap semester.
Yeah.
That gap space where I was.
Right back when you finished.
But at that point, I had moved from doing, because I was always doing work for the city, but they put me in City Hall doing payrolls. I was literally working in City Hall on the 6th floor. And I had gone from department of, I forgot the department we were in, but I moved from there because the lady I worked with for years, at the mayor's office. I worked for the mayor's office of employment and training for years. That's what we did our payroll for the summer program. We did it all year long, the summer program. And then she moved, Pat McCaskill moved from the Department of Mayor's Office of Employment and Training. She moved to head payroll at Department of Sewers. So by the time I graduated, she pulled me immediately. Like, you ain't even gonna look for a job.
Wow.
And nice money at the time too. Like, I'm like, oh, this is nice money. I'm straight out. They didn't even give me a chance to look for a job.
Wow.
So I'm working there, making good money, straight out of college, doing stuff I'm very familiar with. Everything's good. Working in City Hall, to the point that in the lounges I was going to, hanging out in bars, stuff like that. That was my nickname, City Hall. Like City Hall, you know.
They knew you from around the way.
Right. I was City Hall, and everything was golden, man. And this is why I say there's a twist to the story. And I'm telling you this because you understand how I got to Howard University. I got in a car accident. Like should have died car accident.
Oh, wow.
Same car accident that Kanye was in.
Okay.
Same one.
Wow.
The only reason I survived that car accident is because I did not have my seatbelt on.
Did not have it on.
Did not. I was coming from the west side, driving home, temperature like this.
Yep.
Right?
Beautiful day out.
Hot as fuck.
Hot though.
Right. It's like 2 a.m. Hadn't drunk anything. I was clear-headed as ever. It was just hot. My ass driving down Lakeshore Drive, windows down, 90 degrees, listening to fucking Stairway to Heaven by the OJs.
So you was starting to drift off.
While my ass should have been listening to some George Clinton, something with some a Farley Funky Keith mix, something to amp me up. I'm chilling, listening to Stairway to Heaven by the OJs, just like.
And drifting.
I drifted and nodded and took out a street pole on Lakeshore Drive, right by the museum.
Wow. Took
it out, totaled the car, and literally broke my left ankle, split my right knee open, and broke every bone in my face under my nose.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah. Got out the car and was like, what the fuck did I looked at the car like, what the fuck did I just do?
Yeah.
What the fuck and just passed out. I wake up, ambulances, gurney, the whole, like, everything. Literally. And like, I'm like done, car's done, the street light is down, right? It's like down. And a fucking police officer, as I'm laying in the gurney, gives me a ticket.
Stop it.
For property destruction.
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Now,
like true Chicago.
Right. The reason the seatbelt not on saved my life is because my body was limp because I had drifted off and fallen asleep. When your seatbelts lock, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When your seatbelts lock,
you can't go nowhere.
You can't go nowhere.
Yep.
But your body's usually alert to it, so you tense. With my body being limp and I had a seatbelt on, my neck body would have stayed still. My neck would have automatically snapped.
Yep.
Broken neck, I would have died. The only thing that saved my life was I did not have my seatbelt on.
Wow. That's a blessing.
Yeah, that's a blessing. So now you go through this. So I'm in the hospital. I have to go through physical therapy to learn how to eat again. Like I'm wired up, the whole, all that stuff. And I remember being told that, and here's where it's weird, because I remember my grandmother's voice telling me this, but it's probably either my Aunt Pauline or my Aunt Barbara, but I remember my grandmother's voice. But I heard, like, there's a reason you survived this accident, because you're supposed to die. Mm-hmm. There's a reason you survived this accident. You need to find out what that reason is. And that was it. I'm like, all right. I'm working for the city, making good money, but what the fuck am I really doing with my life? Like, why did I? You hear about all type of car accidents, this, that, and the other. Why did I survive this one? Why did something as minuscule as not having my seatbelt on, which is something they teach you you're supposed to do, how does that become a saving grace? Like, all right, let me rethink this entire life thing. Because you're trying to do everything right. You're going to school, you're doing this, that, you're working, you're doing it. But there, it's not, are you happy? It's like, all right, now this is beyond your happiness. Why are you here? Why are you still here?
It becomes that second half. It becomes that part that, okay, what is it that I need to be doing?
Exactly.
This is where I need to be going.
Exactly.
This is where I need to be focused on and growing.
Exactly. 100%. So I was able to go back to the Department of Sewers with the city. And my entire focus had changed. I was like, all right, I really do want to really find out what this media space is really like and get involved.
The passion that you had.
Yeah, because I wanted to see what I wanted to see what it's like to be a part of this. Yep. So I started and created a newsletter for the Department of Sewers. They had never had one. Okay. So I was like, all right, we're gonna start doing some reports. So start a newsletter, very similar like the thing I was thinking with the Scoop with the Source, but do it with the Department of Sewers. Give them their own newsletter. Started that. Got my money together. Got all my money together as I could, and wound up leaving the Department of Sewers a year. I think the accident was in September of '97. September '87. I think maybe September '87, maybe '88. I can't remember the exact year. But recovered from that, and a year after that is when I started saving my money. I was still with the Department of Sewers. And, because it was 89, right? Yeah. So, no, let me get it right. Accident, I think, was September 88. Yep, September 88.
Yep.
Recovered from that, and August of 89, I was at Howard University. Because after I recovered from that, after going through rehab and all this, that, and the other, back at work, I think maybe in January or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's when I started saving my money. You know what I was going to do? Started the newsletter for the city. I think the newsletter came out in May. And resigned from, I applied to go to grad school because that's a whole process of like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I got to go to grad school. Yep. And I applied to 2 schools, Howard and Northwestern. And Northwestern, just in case Howard didn't go through.
Yep.
And the only reason I was able to go to Howard, because my mother refused to pay for me to go to Howard undergrad, because she went to Howard.
Okay.
She's like, they're not getting another penny out of me ever. So
oh, wow.
That's all.
Okay.
But I understand that because I felt that way about Xavier. After the way Xavier played me together, I'm like, no, they'd never get another penny out. You know, right? So, but I'm like, I'm paying for this myself, so I can choose where the hell I'm going to go, right? So Howard accepted me. Okay. And this gets to the writing thing. Howard accepted me strictly based on my letter of interest I wrote to them to join the school. Like, they didn't even have me take the MCAT.
The interest exam.
Yeah, the interest exam. They were like, bypass that, you're in the program.
Wow.
And that's, like you said, what started that whole thing was the accident. Like, okay, I got to find out why I'm here. And if I'm going to find out why I'm here, I got to find out what I'm interested in and find out what this is like. So I'm going to grad school.
I'm going
to grad school.
Knock that out.
The wheel started turning in. And it wasn't, to my point is that it wasn't just about going to grad school. It was going to grad school somewhere where it's going to be, where I was going to learn. It was going to be, Northwestern was here, but they had the school in Medill.
Yep.
They had one of the best journalism schools in the country. Either I'm going there, and I know they don't let a lot of black folks in, but that's why I'm going. Right. Because they're going to need some black folks. And I don't,
Go find your way and make it happen.
Right. But I'm pretty sure they're going to let me in, and I wanted to go to Howard because I wanted to go to Howard the first time, but mom would pay for it. So I'm following, it's like, you start following your dreams, but then your dreams get real specific. Mm-hmm. And at that point, mine were real specific because all I'm doing is trying to figure out, why am I still alive?
Yep.
So it's almost like you're living through whatever purpose you're still here on. And that's what I was doing. No. So that's when the search began. And that's how I wound up at Howard University. Right.
I love that. Trying to go on to seeking after your purpose and understanding what your why is. That's why you gotta go for it. Like I tell people, don't wait for the moments. As soon as you figure out what it is you're passionate about, the things that you wake up in the morning and you ain't even got to get paid for. I mean, it's nice to get paid, but you don't have to get paid for, and you're still willing to do it on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. That's where you got to find that niche. That's where you got to go after that.
Dream your way through bars that don't bend. I'm telling you, that's what it is. That's it.
You're right. It stays from your mom.
That's it.
Stays right there from there.
That's it.
So you've written some incredible work. Soul Provider. Thank you. You've written some incredible, articles, and whether it's the newspapers or magazines, Slam, any of those things, like so many different things. Where do you find that inspiration to bring that passion through the words and articulate the way you do?
Not to connect the dots, but a lot of that came from what I learned at Howard University. In all honesty, I think, getting at Howard and being in that space, it's called the Mecca for a reason. Yep. And understanding that while I've always carried, because of the way I was raised and because of what I believe in, a strong sense of black pride, Howard allowed me to really understand that black pride is one thing, but unapologetically living with black pride is something totally different. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned down at Howard University. I learned about what it was like to be unapologetic about what you do and who you are. Yeah. And that's where that came from. And being challenged about what you were trying to become. I went down there and studied I went from studying mass communications to studying specifically human communications. Got my master's degree in human communication studies. So it went beyond understanding the public use of communications through advertising, through radio, through media, journalism, and news and television broadcast. It went to how we as human beings globally.
A little more finite. Got to get in there and understand the intricacies of. But it
also includes all these other public spaces as well. So it's not just, but we're still human beings communicating with each other, just on a public platform. But it got into the nuances of how we culturally communicate with each other, as people, and through race, and through economics, and through religion. All of these factors factored in what we were studying at Howard University. Yeah. And the challenge that university presents to you as being spoken about in the way that the school is, and trying to be accepted into those elite spaces educationally that are in this country, where a lot of times they are shifted out from a lot of the schools that are being recognized, as the highest spaces of institutions that we have, where Howard feels they should be in that conversation, but they're left out. But they are in some of those conversations. And the challenge that you face when you go to that university to try to live up to that, so that you walk when you leave that university in a space where whatever you say, whatever you do, they're going to respect you as being a member of what they're trying to exclude you from. Yeah. The motto at Howard is, why did you go to Howard? Because I misspelled Harvard on my, on my application. But we're supposed to be in the same conversations with the Pristons and, the Notre Dame, Ivy League, all we're supposed to be in those conversations and understanding what that is about from a non-elitist standpoint. Yeah. Just from an educational standpoint about, oh no, we're about to show you another level of work that you probably never experienced before. Exactly. And so the challenges that university and that program I was in forced us to work through. Yeah. Directly forced us to work through. And going through that and understanding what the term fortitude actually means, and while you're still paying for it yourself out of your own pocket. Understanding how strong you could be, and when you come out of that, what unapologetic really, really means and what it looks like and how it should feel. Yeah. So all of that came in my writing through what I went through at Howard University. It gave me a clear understanding that you can literally, if you do it well and you do it to a certain level, walk through life never having to apologize until you've done something wrong. That's how I've approached the craft of writing, and that's what I've tried to build my career off of since then.
I love it. What, there are so many different things that I can really go with. You've dropped so many. What could somebody do does you feel like, should they take that same direction as you? Because I feel like the nature of journalism may have shifted a little bit.
Oh, yes, definitely shifted.
It shifted. Yeah. So where would you kind of, for those who are thinking about getting into the space, how do you feel like they should be going in?
I'm smart enough to know, let me put that, because I'm wise enough to know that there's no one answer to that question. And I am really in no place to really give that answer. Yeah. Because everybody's situation is different. Sure. What I am smart enough, I think, to know is that there is a blanket that you can throw out as an adjacent answer to that question that they could use. Not follow, but use. And I would say, because the nature of the game has changed so much, that there is no one singular path in which to go. It's like the ignorance of reading Dr. Spock's book on raising children. Every fucking child is different. There's no one book that's ever going to tell you how to raise.
That's real.
They're individuals. Now they could be a foundation. There could be things that they could tell you. They can adjacently blanket an answer, but nobody can give you a specific answer for how to raise. You can't do that. So I'm using that as this analogy to say what I'm going to say about answering, the question that you asked, in that as much as the landscape in entering the media field has changed because of how large the space has become and how open the space has become and how financially free it has become to enter into this space, that having a sense of earned belonging doesn't have to come from going through what I went through.
Yeah.
But to me, it helps in how you're able to move.
Yeah.
And if you want to move through this industry on your own accord, then you should have a foundation that no one is in position to take from you.
Yeah.
Like the square you're standing on should be immobile. It's not about you moving to the next square. It's about you standing on the square that you're on, and nothing anybody tries to do to you can move you from that square. Now, if that's not important to you, cool. But to me, it has always been, for better or for worse, the foundation that I could lay my head down at night next to my wife and feel confident about, that I've done everything and I've walked through this space in a way that I feel that everything has been earned.
Yep.
And there's a comfort in that. Mm-hmm. And that comfort goes beyond anything that I think a young person trying to get in this game would have to deal with if they don't have that foundation.
Yeah.
In that there's always going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good and bad. There's going to be times where you are challenged and really rethinking, or have to think about, did I make the right life choice when it came to career and entering this field? This field, like most other fields, but this one more particularly because of the certain dynamics that are at play here that aren't in other fields, is going to test you in ways that nobody can prepare you for. But if your foundation is not solid,
yeah,
then that's when the second thoughts, the disbeliefs, the lack of purpose,
yep,
the defeating feelings can seep in and strip you of not only your ability to move forward, but of your integrity,
yep,
in what it is that you do in approaching this game.
yep.
Like, there's nothing I've done in my career. We've had a long conversation here about education and the role that education has been in my life. But there's nothing I've done in my career that lent itself to me having a degree from Xavier University,
Yeah.
with a double major, that, has helped me with having a master's degree from Howard University and making the National Dean's List while I was there. I could have done what I'm doing without any of that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't walk the same way through this journey without that.
Without those experiences.
Because,
those teachings.
right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, if there's a comfort level. There's a self-assured comfort level that knows that, all right, as hard as this industry is, I put myself on a foundation that I think I'm gonna be all right.
Yeah.
Yep. It's the understanding that the journey is what your foundation is. And the stronger your journey, the more you've gone through, the more the stuff that you put yourself through, gives you a stronger foundation to deal with what you have to deal with here. Now, it's not going to necessarily make you more money. Yep. It's not going to make you more successful. It's not going to present any more opportunities to you. Yep. But it is going to give you the ability to say no. And no in this business is the most powerful word you, especially as a black man, can have. That's what the education is about. That's what going through all the bullshit's about. Mm-hmm. For you to be able to say no. You know, and you know as well as I do, the history that we have in this country as black folks, the one thing that America, especially white America, can dangle in our face is money. Mm. And that's usually the first thing that we say yes to. First thing. Because it's the one thing that we historically have not had. Yep. Generationally, we do not have. It's not necessarily the fame, because money and fame are connected. It's not necessarily power, because a lot of times power and money are connected. Yep. But it's because they don't guarantee that to us. They guarantee to other people, but they don't guarantee, you know, that to us. But they can put bags in front of our face and guarantee money. And we have a tendency to say yes to it. But that's what makes no so powerful. Yep. When your foundation is strong, you get what I'm saying? Yep. It allows you to say no. I'm not going to give you the power to navigate this, because you have the power, just as you're putting this bag in front of me, if I haven't earned it, to take it from me, yep. And now I'm sitting on my ass. Yep. And one thing I learned from Al Sharpton, from doing a story on him, when I interviewed him for XXL magazine, was, Scoop, they can come in my office and knock me on my ass, right? Knock me out of my chair and leave me on my ass behind my own desk. That's fine. Now, if they leave and come back and 2 days later, I'm still on my ass, that ain't their fault. That's you. That's on me. My black ass should not be laying on my ass for 2 days, waiting on somebody to come pick me up. Mm-hmm. Same thing. What is your foundation? What is the foundation you stand on? Yeah. That's where that whole thing comes from. For me, I can't tell you that going my route, going what I do, is going to be best for you. Yep. But I can tell you what doing this can allow you to think and feel and help you navigate through this bullshit, mm-hmm. by what you're able to stand on. Yeah. I can tell you that going through the process that I went through will definitely give you more power to say no. And as you get older and find your career, you'll understand that the word no becomes the most powerful word that you can have at your disposal. At your disposal. Until you get some experience and other stuff, you know, going on as you're coming into the game. Yep. It gives you that power to say no, and that means as you get older, you understand that says more than anything. And it will help you understand that one of the most important things that you can do from a career standpoint in your life is to make sure your no is more powerful than their no to you. Because you're going to hear no a lot. Yeah. But if your no is always more powerful than a no that anybody else can give you, then you're good.
That's when you're good.
You know what I'm saying? But I can't tell you, you need to do that. You need to go the route or do my thing or follow my path in order to make that happen. Yep. I can't guarantee that. I can't say that. And that's what I'm saying. I'm wise enough to know there's really no answer to that. But I'm smart enough to know that, hey, it's a stronger guarantee if you do it a certain way. Yeah. You know, if you give yourself some own backing. You know, if you do this without having a particular end game in mind, you're doing it just to strengthen yourself. Yeah. It's like taking Taekwondo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's never about you preparing yourself to be in a fight. It's about you mentally being prepared to avoid a fight. Yeah. Yep. It's the theoretical things that you walk through life with. It's the ideology that you have to walk through this space with, that you carry with you, that is your strength. And that's what I've tried to do, is like mentally and psychologically prepare myself. Yeah. But that preparation comes with the power of putting myself in a position that anytime somebody dangles money in front of my face, I'm not jumping.
You're not jumping at it.
It's good, it's cool, but that cannot be the end all be all for how I should put myself into function, because once you do that, especially in this country, they got
you. Yep, sure do.
Quincy Jones said once God enters the room, once money enters the room, God leaves. And I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
I think there's really something to that. And I never wanted to put myself in position to have money dictate how I flow, every decision I made, and who I am.
Yeah.
Because the people that have the positioning and access to money, for the most part, I have never been the people that have my best interest at heart.
Mm-hmm. That's sad.
So why should I? But that's the true part about it.
True.
It's sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
So why should I give them that authority over me?
Over you. It goes back to even what your mother said back then about you going to play basketball.
Yeah, exactly. Exact same concept.
Same concept.
Exact same concept. So that's kind of the answer I have to your question of what I would tell somebody young is that I can't tell you how to do this because the landscape has changed. If you asked me 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I could have maybe given you a more concrete answer how to work your way through these waters.
Yep.
But these waters have changed.
Yep.
These waters have definitely changed, and depending on what you want out of it, I cannot tell you how to go forth and move that. But I can tell you the one thing I know that will not hurt you.
Yeah.
And that is using time to not rush to get where it is you're trying to go. And if you use that time wisely, you will walk through whatever your future holds for you from a career standpoint in a way where you're never going to be able to walk with your head down.
Yeah.
You'll always be comfortable looking at yourself in the mirror and proud of what you see, the reflection to come back on. And once you do that, everybody else is going to look at you the same way.
Yeah.
You give yourself the power to, like I said, to say no, that you didn't settle. Basically is what it boils down to. You didn't settle. You never put yourself in position to ever settle for something that is not who you are. And that's, if you could do that, then beautiful. And to me, understanding that the game is not really going anywhere. And I will say that to them. The game may shift and some parts of the game may change, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with storytelling.
Yep.
Whatever means of storytelling, we're dealing with storytelling. If you look at the history of mankind, there's always been a role for storytellers, always. Yeah. So what type of storyteller are you going to be? How are you going to be able to not necessarily monetize on that, but how are you going to make your version of storytelling have an impact on society at the same time you're able to build a career off of it that means something?
Yep. That's it. That's it right there. Yeah. My man. Well, Scoop, I really appreciate you being on this podcast. You got so much knowledge within the game, beyond the game, internal, policy, politics, any of those things. You've been such a great human being around the game.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
And you have to continue to write. I got one more question before we get going. You've written so many different pieces. What's the one piece either you didn't finish yet or you feel that you haven't, quite crafted that out? Or what is the piece that you just haven't done yet that you really want to do?
It's great you asked me that question because that's great you asked that question because one, I don't think that way. I'm always open to understanding that there's so many stories out there that I don't know about that I'll just run into them.
Yeah.
So I don't ever want to say I want to do this story and then miss out on something else that's being done. And I have an unhealthy arrogance about storytelling that it's more about whatever stories I luck upon, like find my way, and I'm able to do something with that nobody else is able to do. And it goes back to what Dr. Kent did with the paperclip.
The paperclip.
Like I'm not necessarily in search of those things, but I'm always trying to be prepared in case a paperclip falls or is presented again in front of me that I'm ready to write about it.
Ready to write about it.
You know, I've always had this theory to look. Steven Spielberg wrote a film about an alien that made people cry in E.T.
In E.T.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't want to be the person that says, I want to chase this story. I want to be the person that's ready in case somebody says, can you write a story about an alien? That I'm ready to...
You're ready to do exactly
the same thing, right? So I kind of don't look at like what stories haven't I gotten in and things are still evolving. And once you think that there are things or individuals that don't come across your radar,
yep,
you're like, I'd rather do this. Like, had you asked me, and look, give you an example. I've known her damn near her entire adult life. First person to ever do a story on her in Slam magazine, but first person to really do a story on her. And this is back in 1996, I think.
Who was this?
Dawn Staley.
Dawn Staley.
Right. Okay. Now, you're asking me a story that I haven't written. Now, I happen to have done a story on Dawn Staley. Okay. Right? And I love Dawn. That's heart and soul. We go back, right?
Okay.
Did I see Dawn Staley then what she's become now?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. So I put that in perspective. Let's take that question you just asked me. If you asked me that question 10 years ago, Dawn Staley would have been the furthest thing from my mind.
Furthest thing from your mind at the time. I got you.
But you ask me now, I'm like, I want to do a book on Dawn Staley.
Absolutely.
You get yours? But that's why I don't think like that way, because
I got you. I understand
it
that.
changes so fast. Things change so fast.
Yeah.
They evolve.
And that was just in 96.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So I got approached. I didn't get approached. I'm in conversations about possibly, maybe, I'm not going to say it's going to happen. I want to rephrase this the right, correct way.
Yeah.
There's conversations that have been started about a Dawn Staley book, a Kyrie Irving book, and an Allen Iverson book.
Yeah.
Now, those are things that have been put on the table that early discussions are being had about those as possible projects moving forward. I spent my whole professional career damn near writing about Allen Iverson.
Yep.
But there has not been a book written on Allen Iverson in 20 years. I know they're doing a documentary about him, and I worked on the documentary. I was creative director of the documentary we did on him in Showtime.
Okay.
So I know his life. But books and biographies are different. They're more in-depth. And I know there's so much part of Allen's story that's not being told that I know I'm privy to and could tell that story and he'd be comfortable in us sharing this.
Yep.
So as I sit back and read, I'm not saying they're of the same importance. Please don't get me wrong.
All right.
But I'm sitting back and reading Jonathan Ive and what he's did with the recent King book, where he just won a Pulitzer Prize.
Wow.
And there have been so many books written on King, but it had been 20 years or so since, I forgot how long, maybe 40, I forgot how many, maybe 20, 40 years, how long, 30 years?
Yeah.
Since there had been a biography written about King, and in talking to Jonathan about it, and like, there's been so many books written on King. Why do you say? Because look at all the time that has gone.
Yeah.
It's time for another, there's fresh angle, there's fresh information. There's stuff there to do another biography.
Yep.
And he messed around and did it probably more brilliantly than anybody else.
Wow.
And it's an amazing thing, but he won the greatest award you could ever read. He didn't even see it coming. I told him before it came, I said, you're going to win one for this after reading. I'm like, yeah. You're going to win one. I was the first interview after he wrote the book. He was like, I want you to interview me for this book. I'm like, all right, let's go. We spent 4 hours talking about this book.
Yep.
And I'm saying, okay. And he's the one that's like, you need to think about this.
Yep.
So what I'm saying about Allen Iverson in like a project of what haven't I written yet, right?
Yep.
It's been 20 years since somebody's done a book on Iverson.
Yeah.
His story has been told, but it still hasn't been completed yet. There's stuff there.
There's still stuff that's still formulating, and you can dive more into and
really
pull some details out of it.
Not that it's the same thing, but there's space to be done something on his life that's equivalent to what Jonathan Ive just did with King.
Yep.
There's 700 pages sitting there for somebody to write about Allen Iverson's life that will move the fuck out of the world.
Yep.
If the right writer gets it in his or her hands.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, thinking about that.
I got
You know what I'm saying? That could be something that, oh yeah, I wouldn't mind like getting my hands on that. Kyrie Irving's story is phenomenal, and I know Kyrie very well. But there's a side, and there's 700 pages there that need to be told.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Now, I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm the right person to do it, but you're asking me what haven't I gotten my hands on yet. These are things that are coming to mind because they're on the table. I would never really think about this, but I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Dawn Staley needs a book done on her.
Oh, 100%.
Dawn Staley needs that biography done with her
100%.
involvement in it.
100%.
Even if it's an autobiography, she needs to, because of what she's done and what she's meant and what she's meaning right now.
Yes.
She's the sports version of Michelle Obama.
Yeah, she really is.
She really is, right?
She really is.
That's what I'm saying.
She's doing it.
Somebody needs to get their hands on that book. So that, right now, that's my answer right now. But my point, Jabari, you can ask me 2 years from now. It's going to be, we didn't think about this. Right. This, right. We didn't think of
Victor Wembanyama. It might be,
But it's also what society is going to take a turn. And they're going to do something either to make us think, piss us off, or make us say finally. One of those three things.
Yep.
And that's when you're like, as a storyteller, I want to know if I can get my hands on that. I want to get my hands on that.
Yeah.
I want to know if I can get my hands on that. Like I never expected Major League Baseball to finally allow the Negro Leagues records to be included.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
MLB, yep.
Yeah, to officially be part of
Had you written that 5 years, 2 years ago, you would never had the opportunity to do. Now we got that information.
Right. Now, I'm lucky enough that when the story happened, I can tell, this story. But see, you don't see that 2 years ago coming.
I got you.
But once again, you want to be in a position for when that paperclip is put in front of you that you're ready to. That's it. That's exactly where it is. So
I got you.
I can't really give you a definitive answer on what it is I haven't done that I'm looking forward to do, or what it is that I've done I can do more on, or what I can get my hands on next. My answer to you is that I'm just trying to maintain the position to be prepared for when somebody puts another paperclip in front of me.
That's it. There we go. That's another Second Half podcast with my man Scoop Jackson. Man, I really appreciate you as always. So much conversation to be had with this. I'm gonna have to get you back on here because we're gonna have to dive into some. We're gonna have to talk about that paperclip in a few more. We're gonna have to bring the paperclip back out.
Definitely talk about that. Right? Definitely talk about that. No doubt.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we back. See you. Peace.